watching these things.
Good. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the stream today on July 11th. Oh my gosh, it's Wednesday. I'm here with intern Jackie again.
Hello.
Jackie.
We're here.
What's going on? You guys, we started our stream here with the map of the weather. Look at it. It's so super gorgeous. It's going to be hot this week.
Whew,
if you
toasty.
I know. If you're in the DMV area, definitely beware of that. It's going to get super humid this weekend, but looking good though. I'm happy with it. It's summer. It's the middle of July. We're going for it. It's going to be exciting. All-Star Week, 1 week, less than a week away.
Yeah.
All-Star Game comes to DC, so people are getting super excited. There are so many fan fest type activities in the next 6 days or so. At the convention center, we had one of our reporters, Bob, out there this morning to check out what is going on for sort of pre-game festivities. And then also this week, a lot of big stuff going on in Europe. NATO the NATO 2018 summit is happening right now as we speak. In fact, jumping over there, a quick live look at the NATO summit here. I believe this is the leader of Belgium here speaking from an earlier press conference this morning. But later on today, we are going to have some live coverage of President Trump. He'll be participating in a welcome ceremony with Mrs. Trump as well, FLOTUS, and they'll be sort of greeting the allied heads of state in the urban park that sprawls across Brussels, Belgium. So that's some international stuff for us today, which is pretty exciting. Inside look at the Senate floor right now. Some debates going on this morning, so we'll be looking over there as well. This is a live look at Capitol Hill. And we have a couple stories for you, too, to kind of explain what is going on with NATO negotiations and sort of what to expect with that. But first and foremost, Jackie, the most important thing today is, are you ready? Do you know?
Free Slurpee Day!
Super exciting.
So fun.
So it's Free Slurpee Day, 7-Eleven, as they do every year from 11 to 7 p.m. More details on their website, but it's across the nation. Are you going to go?
Oh, for sure.
What have you done it before? What's your experience?
So when I used to work at this camp, and they would do, every 7-Eleven, they would get free Slurpees for whoever was on a field trip that day. So they would always stop by on the way back to camp. It was great.
I love it. The funny thing is it's a free small Slurpee for anyone that goes in between those hours, provided they still have them, they're still like in stock. But the whole joke of this day is that everyone makes these videos of like coming in there with like big containers and like baby pools.
Yeah, I definitely have heard some people trying to bring in baby pools, but it gets pretty ridiculous. My friends definitely do that.
Oh my God, I love it. Anyway, so there you go on your screen. That's what it's going to look like, hopefully. Probably smaller than that, though.
Yeah.
Free Slurpee Day, 7-Eleven. Happy July 11th, guys. We're halfway through, almost. I know.
Back to school soon.
Summer months. Gosh, but other than that, we're going to take a look around to kind of see what's going on. My camera is, like, coming off. Okay. What's going on for live and breaking news. As always, we're here. If you're new to our stream, welcome. Fox 5 Live inside the DC newsroom here, and we're going to kind of just bring you around to all the live and breaking news, whatever it may be, and we'll take some stuff from our sister stations across the nation as well, so just kind of keep you in the loop of all the national stuff and international, provided we have some of this NATO stuff coming up next. So from that, let's kind of get a little summation of what is going on at the NATO summit, give you guys that, and then we'll throw it over there and be looking around for whatever else is going on. Thanks for helping, Jackie.
All right, of course.
New kind of diplomacy for NATO. President Trump says he is simply defending U.S. taxpayers who are carrying too much of the load.
But no other president brought it up like I bring it up.
In what would usually be a sedate photo op, a breakfast meeting between the U.S. delegation and the head of NATO in Brussels, President Trump did not mince words, singling out U.S. allies, incensed that many aren't spending what they should on defense, while paying Russia for its vast supplies of natural gas, and he was naming names.
So we're protecting Germany, we're protecting France, we're protecting all of these countries. And then numerous of the countries go out and make a pipeline deal with Russia where they're paying billions of dollars into the coffers of Russia.
But Trump is not alone with the tough talk. Yesterday, the head of the European Council fired his own warning shots.
Dear America, appreciate your allies. After all, you don't have that many.
And despite the handshakes, this new approach to U.S. allies is making waves. And it comes ahead of a number of other stops on this trip as the president makes his way from Brussels to London to Scotland and then on to Finland for a one-on-one with Vladimir Putin, something Democrats are already critical of.
I am very much afraid what he would give away without any advisors to keep him in check.
The president seemed to brush it off.
Frankly, Putin may be the easiest of them all. Who would think? Who would think?
For now, though, this is all about NATO, and President Trump says he is confident that other nations will start spending more. In Washington, Doug Luzader, Fox News.
So kind of a good synopsis there in case you're just getting in tune with kind of what goes on at that summit. President Trump landed in Brussels yesterday, and we took that, I believe, live to our feed. And then today we should be able to see him participate, like I said, in this welcome ceremony with Melania Trump in Brussels. So that should be sort of picturesque and kind of cool to see. I did also want to mention, because I forgot to mention this, coming up very shortly at noon Eastern time, we are slated to get in a really interesting press conference with the Stoneman Douglas High School survivors of that shooting and their attorneys. They're filing a federal lawsuit, and they're going to come together and kind of speak about that from Coral Springs, Florida. So we should be getting that in relatively shortly. I believe we may even have a shot up soon of something to that effect. So when we do have that up, we'll make sure we bring that to you live. And then other than that, we're going to be kind of jumping around, bring you into NATO and what it looks like over in Brussels coming up in a little bit. So just so you know, that is sort of on our plan. Should be quite interesting. Now, also interesting and related simultaneously to that, Nicholas Cruz, the alleged shooter in that Parkland shooting from Valentine's Day, was in court today for another hearing. He's been going through sort of a series of hearings, and we've been trying to take them to air when we have them live. So again, if we do have that, we'll make sure we bring that to you. So let's take a look at some of the other stories related to both President Trump and some of the stuff abroad, and then some other local stories as well.
$200 billion in Chinese imports could be hit with new tariffs. The move announced by the Trump administration Tuesday is the latest maneuver in the ongoing trade war between the world's two largest economies.
No one wins in a trade war.
More than 6,000 products could be affected by the new proposed tariffs, adding 10% to a range of goods, including seafood, fruits and vegetables, and grains, and products ranging from burglar alarms to car rear-view mirrors. The Trump administration blaming this latest round of tariffs on China's decision to retaliate against the U.S.'s first round of tariffs.
We're hurting our real ability to make China come to the table and make concessions.
The tariffs issued as Mr. Trump prepares to attend the NATO summit Wednesday and Thursday. The meetings are expected to be a bit tense, with President Trump calling out NATO allies for not contributing their fair share to the organization.
We're being taken advantage of. We spend at least 70% for NATO, and frankly, it helps them a lot more than it helps us.
But some think these imposed tariffs have the potential to backfire.
This is where you have a negotiation, and with allies, you don't want to have a situation where they are turning to other trading partners. You want them to continue to buy our stuff.
And President Trump is even getting blowback from his own party. Tennessee Senator Bob Corker is calling for a vote Wednesday to reduce the president's power to make tariffs in the name of national security. And Texas Representative Kevin Brady wants the president to have a face-to-face meeting with China's president on trade. In Washington, Ray Bogan, Fox News. Vice President Mike Pence sat down with top senators on the Judiciary Committee Tuesday night. It's all part of a push to get Brett Kavanaugh confirmed to the Supreme Court.
As the American people come to know and appreciate this principled jurist, that we'll see him confirmed.
Brett Kavanaugh already getting some high-profile backing as he starts looking for support in the Senate. Tuesday, he met with Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley, who will head up the first of several hearings in Kavanaugh's confirmation.
Hopefully it's efficient. We get it done quickly, but it's going to be thorough and going to be done right.
Pence said he feels confident Kavanaugh is off to a good start.
Well, I think we feel very encouraged at the early response,
which could be crucial with a slim majority in the Senate. And the administration isn't just looking for Republicans for help, they're looking to Democrats up for re-election in states won by Trump. That includes John Tester of Montana, who says he's keeping an open mind heading into the confirmation process.
Do you feel pressure to vote for him?
No, I don't feel pressure to vote for him or against him. either way.
This, as Democratic officials have made it clear, they think Kavanaugh is the wrong choice.
Why is this so critical? Because when you listen to what Judge Kavanaugh has said in his past, when you look at the positions that he's taken, they have been clearly concerning. He is extremely conservative. Just because someone smiles doesn't mean everything they're saying is good for you.
Kavanaugh is expected back on the Hill Wednesday morning for meetings, including with several prominent Republican senators. In Washington, Ray Bogan, Fox News.
It was a miracle when deputies discovered a 5-month-old baby buried alive in a Montana forest. And now 32-year-old Francis Carlton Crowley has been charged with felony assault on a minor and felony criminal endangerment. Crowley appeared via video conference in a Missoula, Montana courtroom Tuesday. He was sobbing and reportedly fell to the floor when the judge read the allegations against him. Over the weekend, officers responded to the Lolo National Forest after getting calls about a man acting strange. When they arrived, Crowley told deputies he was involved in a crash and left the infant behind because the baby was too heavy. He admitted to being on drugs and was too incoherent to lead police to the child, so they began searching. Early Sunday morning, Officer Ross Jessup heard the baby's faint cry. The little boy had been wearing only a soiled onesie and was buried under sticks and debris for several hours in 40-degree temperatures. Officials say the baby boy is in good condition.
Such an incredible story, crazy story from Montana this morning that we learned about. That was our Holly Morris doing that package. Unfortunately, some of the sound cut out on what the officer had to say, but he said that he was so happy to see this baby alive. It somehow had survived in those conditions. Quite a miracle, right?
40-degree weather as an infant.
And that area, I mean, it just seems to be, you could even see the sort of the small, kind of lackluster courtroom. It's just a sort of a out there kind of farm life, wood life area in Montana. It's very different from city life where everybody's kind of moving around fast paced. It's really a miracle this baby was found. So yeah. Crazy story. We mentioned we might get the Parkland survivors talking about their lawsuit. Unfortunately, I have not seen that come in, so hoping to get that for you guys. If it does come in live or somehow we can find it, we'll make sure we bring that to you. But ahead of President Trump's kind of fanfare in Brussels, I want to show you some of the fanfare from this morning at the opening ceremonies of NATO. It's always kind of cool to see how they do this, how the countries come together, the flags, the band, President Trump's reaction and some of the other leaders, and you can get sort of a glimpse as to what we'll be looking at a little bit later on our live stream at NATO. So without ado, let's play the opening ceremony from this morning.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, may I invite you all to rise and for the military to salute for the playing of the NATO hymn. Excellences, mesdames et messieurs, je vous invite à tous vous lever et j'invite les militaires à faire le salut pendant l'hymne de NATO. Secretary General will now deliver his remarks. Le secrétaire général va à présent prononcer son allocution. Heads of state and government, men and women of our armed forces, dear friends, welcome to the Brussels summit. NATO is an alliance of 29 countries, stretching from the Pacific Ocean to the Black Sea, and from the Arctic to the Mediterranean. 29 nations bound together by common history and common challenges, committed to standing together and protecting each other. Together, we have achieved an unprecedented period of peace and security. And we are here today so that future generations can enjoy that same peace and security. We owe our success to our unity, to our resolve, to our ability to change as the world has changed, and above all, to the men and women of our armed forces, who put themselves in harm's way to keep us safe. Some have made the ultimate sacrifice. So, to the thousands of our soldiers, sailors and aircrew serving on operations around the world, let me say, we owe you and your families a huge debt of gratitude. You embody what NATO is. Your skill, your professionalism, your determination. You are what makes peace and security possible. You allow us to look to the future with confidence. We honor you here today and thank you for your service. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, there will now be a flypast of 25 helicopters from 13 NATO countries: Belgium, the Czech Republic, Denmark, France, Germany, Hungary, Italy, Poland, Romania, Slovenia, Turkey, the United Kingdom, and the United States. The package consists of 5 sub-formations, each of which is led by a Belgian helicopter. Within the formation, there are utility, attack, and transport helicopters. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the ceremony. Participants in the meeting at the level of heads of state and government are invited to proceed to room 1 in the conference center. Excellences, mesdames et messieurs, nous arrivons au terme de notre cérémonie. Les participants à la réunion des chefs d'État et ou de gouvernement sont invités à se rendre dans la salle 1 du centre de conférence.
All right, guys, so that was kind of a little taste of the opening ceremony from this morning. Really cool to see all those flags. Jackie and I were just commenting, how do they know, sort of just the stats behind it, how they know what order to put the flags in, and you were asking that. It was such a good question.
Yeah, it was really interesting because I feel like in big ceremonies like this with a lot of countries, they just put them up, and I've always wondered.
And I guess maybe every different sort of summit or occasion is different, but did a little research and found out, it is sort of set up in that semicircle / circle of really no order, so that no one country has prominence over another, and they did that on purpose. And I believe it's also in alphabetical order in French is what we were reading, unless that has changed since then. But according to the NATO website, they've done that in a specific way ever since the day of Eisenhower in the 1950s. So pretty interesting history there with NATO. And
did you say that they rotate the flags?
What I was reading, a portion of it was that there is sort of a monthly or weekly, I believe, rotation.
Okay.
So that not one is sort of above the other, but really in the semicircle, it's sort of supposed to be this undefined, circular, no order type of thing. So good questions prompted by Jackie here about that stuff, because when you watch these international things, sometimes you're like, you just don't know all those facts. So it's a good place to learn. We are just getting word in that there is a press conference in Texas about the separation of families and more information on the immigration stuff that's going on right now and sort of what has become of all that. We've been talking about it for weeks now, seeing numbers thrown out about kids being separated and then being back together with their families. We'll have an update on that in just a second when we get that in. But for now, a related story, the impact of immigrants in the military from our network, Fox News. Here's a package from them about that.
Thousands of immigrants have joined the U.S. military in recent years, hoping to earn a path to citizenship under a program that sought out immigrants with special language skills. But that program was suspended back in September, and now immigration advocates are accusing the Trump administration of quietly discharging many of those recruits, with dozens recently told they are no longer eligible to serve because their background checks couldn't be completed.
It's highly suspicious because these are individuals who are in the country legally, and then all of a sudden this week the Army decides they're just suddenly all national security threats.
Advocates say most of those threats appear to be exaggerated or unrealistic.
There was nothing suspicious in the report. It said that he had an American flag on his telephone, his cell phone. They thought that was suspicious.
But the military is pushing back hard, denying it's made any attempt to target immigrants in its ranks, saying in a statement, quote, "Any recruit who receives an unfavorable security screening is deemed unsuitable for military service." It's unclear how many immigrants will ultimately be discharged, but others who are still in uniform say the controversy hasn't affected their desire to serve.
I always have a deep love for the military, especially the United States military, because they just help the world.
The Pentagon says all immigrant service members are protected under the law, unless they've committed a crime and a judge orders them deported. At the Pentagon, Lucas Tomlinson, Fox News.
Pretty interesting stuff, some things that you don't really always think about, the immigrants wanting to be part of our military. And it's all related because we're going to go down now to Texas. I'm going to find out a little more exactly where this is. But an update on the separation of families and what looks like, according to what we're seeing come in right now, some parents and their children, and the update on what's going on and who's been reunited and what's happening. So it looks like right now they're talking to somebody just prior to this press conference starting, but we'll have that up for you now. We'll check in, and that should officially begin in just a few moments.
So the camera is on them right now. These are the two parents that have agreed to speak to the media. What can you tell me about these families specifically? How long will they separate?
That's part of what we're going to answer today. There have been some pretty extended separations between the father and the child. One of the things that is of concern to us is that we believe that one of the parents may have entered through a port of entry and they were still prosecuted, which is something that we have been assured does not happen. That's the correct way to speak.
The Homeland Security has said repeatedly that is the correct way to do it and that those cases will be prosecuted.
And that's clearly something that we want to look into.
So I know you're about to get the news conference started, but tell me a little bit, what's the next step for these families?
Well, for them, obviously, we reunited the child was the number one thing. That has already happened. We're very pleased. The next is to be reunited with their extended family. So both of them will be reported out later on today. Two different parts of the United States will be reunited.
And certainly there's also the next step. Nearly 3,000 children are in federal custody. These are children that are older. They're 5 years and older. So that's correct. In the next couple of weeks. How is that process going before you see?
We're very concerned. We have two other parents that are with us who have older children. They will have visits with their children. And we're concerned about all the different hoops that have to go through to get their child reunited. Obviously, we're very concerned about the July 26th deadline and whether they're going to be able to fulfill that deadline. are their children.
No, it's Rebecca Garcia with Enunciation. Thank you so much for joining us, Andrea. This is a news conference about to get started here in El Paso. We're hearing some of the first stories of the youngest children reunited yesterday. Andrea, back to you.
Sí, mira, ya al otro lado. Ya vamos a empezar, ¿ok? Yo lo voy a introducir en inglés, en español, ¿ok? Yo voy a estar aquí durante todo el tiempo. Estamos totalmente bien con los niños. Okay. Good morning. Thank you all for coming here this morning. As all of you are aware, last night we were notified that 3 fathers were being reunited with their children, all of them under the age of 5. This morning, we have here one of the children is 4, the other one is 3, will be 4 in a couple of months. And they arrived here at Annunciation House at this last night about 8:30. I want to ask you to please abide by a couple of parameters. We've instructed them to not answer any questions that are connected to why they left their country, and that's a legal concern insofar as their legal representative is concerned, that questions related to why they came up not be asked. I'm especially going to ask of that. I'm going to be here during the press conference, and I can kind of interfere if I hear a question that I don't think should be answered. My concern is that after, if there are one-on-one follow-ups, that I'm counting on your respect, that you stay away from questions related to why they left their country. I also want to inform you, and this was something that we were not aware of last night when they arrived, and that is it appears that even before they were released, that ICE officials made contact with their family members in the U.S. and requested the family members purchase their transportation tickets from El Paso to their destination. And so when they arrived, for example, the father that's already left with his daughter, that ticket was already arranged and it was an early flight, and so they left this morning. We've been able to hold a little bit their departure, but they also will be departing today, so they will not be available here in El Paso once they leave. And so they do have departures, and one of the reasons we schedule at 10:30 because it's really important that we get them to the airport, because the security process there at the airport, since their documents are all taken away by CBP when they're processed, and then they're given ICE documents, there is a special security screening at the airport for them that delays the process. So we want to be sure to be at the airport with plenty of time. This morning, I would like to introduce you to Pablo Ortiz and his son, Andre. I also would like to introduce you to Roger and his son, Roger, basically Jr. Okay? Pablo is from Guatemala, Roger is from Honduras. Les quisiera pedir a ustedes, los medios de comunicación en español, les doy las gracias por estar aquí con nosotros esta mañana. Como muchos de ustedes saben, ayer nos notificado ICE, ya tarde, en la nochecita, que 3 papás iban a ser reunificados allí en las instalaciones de ICE. Y después de que fueran reunidos con sus niños, los iban a soltar, iban a hacer el papeleo para soltarlos y luego nos iban a entregar a nosotros. Los 3 papás, cada uno con su niño, llegó aquí a unas casas de la Casa de Anunciación aproximadamente a eso de las 8:30 anoche. Ellos nos informaron anoche que evidentemente personal de ICE empezó a hacer el proceso de llamarles a sus familias para pedirles a ellos que les compraran los pasajes para poder salir del Paso para irse a las ciudades donde estaban los otros miembros de sus familias, donde se pudieran reunificar. Nosotros no sabíamos eso anoche y uno de los papás con su niña de 4 años ya salió esta mañana. Les estoy pidiendo a los medios de comunicación que no vamos a permitir ninguna pregunta que esté relacionada con las razones por cual estas familias salieron de sus países. Eso es algo que les pedimos a ustedes porque está relacionado con el caso de ellos que esperan en el futuro. Así es que, por favor, ninguna pregunta que esté relacionada con los motivos por cuales ellos se sintieron obligados de tener que huir de sus países. Les quisiera presentar al señor Pablo Ortiz y su niño Andrei. Pablo es de Guatemala y quisiera presentar al señor Roger y su hijo también Roger. Los dos niños, Roger tiene 4 años, aquí Andrei tiene 3 años, va a cumplir 4 años en unos 2 meses. Así es que con esto yo básicamente quisiera abrir la rueda de prensa a ustedes para que ustedes puedan platicar directamente con ellos y que ellos puedan contestar sus preguntas, ¿ok?
Pues el primero que gustaría compartir, ¿cuánto tiempo llevaban separados y cómo es que logran contactarse con sus hijos?
Pues para mí el 30 de abril, me agarraron la inmigración. Y 2 días estoy encerrada ahí en galera de inmigración y 2 días me pagaron mis hijos. Entonces yo le preguntaba que ¿dónde voy a llevar a mi hijo? Pues no sé, me dijo, y no me dijo nada. Yo pongo a ayudar allí y como no sabía dónde está y no me ha dicho nada que dónde me voy a ir, porque ya me quitaron mis hijos y me mandaron otro cárcel y me mandaron otro, como 5 cárceles yo pasó y bien chanceado con la cadena con mi hermana y bueno, es que voy a hacer, lo digo yo porque yo estoy aquí y ya me dieron mi aportación pero como yo tengo mi hija aquí no puedo dejar aquí y yo quiero llevar a mi hijo, pues ahorita gracias a Dios estoy con mi hijo ahorita.
¿Cómo es que se lo quitaron? ¿Cómo se sintió luego de esa separación?
Pues a mí me pongo triste, llorando ahí, y ya me quedé sola y también como no ha hablado mi esposa y yo no lo digo nada y apenas me da una minuta de llamada ya, yo hablo con mi esposa y mi hijo ya me quitaron, lo digo yo. Y ella también en Guatemala le pueden ayudar.
Cuéntanos, esta separación fue dolorosa para ti, me supongo, como padre de familia. ¿Era la primera vez que te separabas de tu hijo?
Sí, primera vez. Sí. Ahorita como 3 meses y yo no lo vi en mi hijo y apenas ayer que lo me da mi hijo.
Y cuéntanos cuál fue la reacción de tu niño al recibirlo tú el día de ayer.
Pues a mí me siento alegre, contento y feliz. Yo lo estoy pidiendo a Dios y gracias. También que trabaja allí también y ya me da mi hijo. Yo lo pedí gracias.
¿Qué preocupación tenías por tu hijo durante esa separación? ¿Tenías alguna preocupación por su salud? ¿Qué es lo que más te preocupaba?
¿Entiendes la pregunta, Pablo? ¿Entiendes lo que te están preguntando?
No.
Él está preguntando que durante el tiempo que estabas separado, que si tú tenías preocupación acerca de qué le estaba pasando a tu hijo.
Pues a mí, como estoy orando por mi hijo, sí, yo no puedo dejar aquí, no puedo, como le dije, yo voy a llevar a mi hijo. Sí.
¿Tú no te querías ir porque te querías llevar a tu hijo contigo?
Sí, yo no quiero ir, pues como me dijeron allá que me voy a reportar en Guatemala, pues como yo lo digo que mi hijo, yo quiero llevar a mi hijo, lo digo yo no voy a dejar a mi hijo porque está chiquito, no voy a dejar, yo voy a llevar mi país, lo digo.
¿Quién te decía que te iban a deportar? ¿Los oficiales? ¿Dónde te decían que te iban a deportar?
Pues el oficial me dijo a mí, hoy me dijo, te vas a reportar, me dijo que ya no hay nada de salido, me dijo, y bueno, me mola, le dijo yo, porque yo quiero llevar a mi hijo, le dijo yo, y que está mi hija aquí.
¿Tuvo comunicación con su hijo durante la separación?
Sí.
¿Cuánto es tan frecuente clase de comunicación por teléfono?
Sí, por teléfono. Por teléfono habló el trabajador social. Entonces yo lo dije que yo no voy a dejar a mi hija, le dije.
¿Cuántas veces se pudo comunicar durante la separación más o menos?
Nada más 3 veces nada más. 3 veces nada más con mi hija.
¿Tres veces en 3 meses?
Sí, 3 meses. 3 veces. Un mes cuando yo venía para acá, cuando me parado, como un mes no habló con él.
¿Y usted pudo saber en las condiciones que estaba su hijo o en qué situación emocional estaba su hijo cuando hizo esas llamadas?
Pues me dijo, yo le preguntaba ahí que ahí está mi hijo, me dijo, sí, aquí estamos, aquí, me dijo, ahí en Texas. Aquí estás, aquí, me dijo a mí. Bueno, está bien. Él no puede hablar nada también. No puede hablar nada y yo, como yo hablo con él y papi, ¿cómo estás? Como él nomás me dijo, papi, me dijo a mí, voy contigo, papi, me dijo a mí. Que como si sabe hablar bien, entonces yo puedo hablar bien con él. Como él no puede chiquito y él no puede dejar como eso, como está chiquito.
¿Cuántos hijos tienes en total?
Bueno, yo tengo 2, como yo, uno de ese tiene 4 años y como yo venía apenas como tiene 4 años uno que está en la casa. Mi esposa, no, como yo la malo dejé ella en la casa sola y con otro niño que es varón también.
¿Tú dónde estabas detenido y dónde tenían a tu niño?
¿Y aquí?
Sí, ¿dónde estabas tú detenido y dónde lo tenían a él?
Pues a mí, él está aquí en Texas, a mí porque están pasando muchos carros, yo vine a Flores, Arizona y otro, no sé cómo se llama, me llevaron el caso general y después me pasaron aquí en Nueva México, ayer me salió aquí en Nueva México.
9 meses.
Nuevo México.
¿Y tu niño en dónde estaba? ¿Estaba en un albergue, en un refugio? ¿Dónde estaba?
Pues creo que un albergue estaba porque como no sabía yo, nomás me da una llamada porque no puedo hablar con el trabajador social porque no sé, el oficial o la ICE no me deja hablar con el trabajador. Me dijo que nada más sus hijos va a hablar y como 10 minutos nada más y ya. Con eso me dijo a mí, bueno, está bien, como mi hija no puede hablar nada. Yo nada más le dije que yo estoy aquí, lo dije a mi hijo y no te voy a dejar. Me dijo, ok, papi, y él está llorando ahí también.
Entonces tu niño no puede hablar bien.
Sí, no puede hablar bien.
¿Y no te ha dicho o te ha hecho señas de cómo se encontraba? ¿Qué fue lo que pasó en el tiempo que estuvieron separados? ¿No te puede informar nada?
No, pues como yo le preguntaba que cómo estás, dónde estás, lo digo yo, pues como él no puede hablar nada y no puede decir a mí.
¿No nota algún cambio en su hijo después de la reunificación? ¿Algún cambio que usted pueda notar?
Él lo reconoció cuando lo viste ayer anoche por primera vez. Él inmediatamente supo que era su papá.
Oh, sí, ajá, a mí digo como ya 3 meses, como me está viendo, como digamos 3 ahí, me está viendo a mí, que me mira bien, hola papi, me dijo a mí, me ponga a abrazar a mí, yo lo pongo a ayudar a él. Papi me dijo, así como ahorita, dormía aquí, está conmigo y feliz, no dormía en la noche, ando conmigo, jugando conmigo entonces yo lo dije que gracias a Dios, lo dijo yo. Porque él como estaba ahí, yo lo agarraba, papi me dijo a mí, como estaba con él.
All right, y'all. Well, I know it's a little bit tough to hear. Some of that was a little bit inaudible, unfortunately, but you get sort of the gist. I was hoping for a little more translation on that. But 2 fathers and their sons. Obviously, at the beginning, the guy sort of said, "Hey, reporters, don't ask them about why they were seeking asylum in the U.S., but it's open questioning." So that was sort of their experience. I believe it was probably for Spanish-speaking media, is what Mike sort of impression was. But yeah, unfortunately, a little bit hard for us to hear too. The sound is tricky with the mics kind of being laid there on the table. But that's the latest there. That was a live look at the Texas border. And we're here live in D.C., guys, upper northwest Washington, D.C. at Fox 5 D.C. inside our newsroom, bringing you the latest and breaking news live video that we have. Coming up very shortly, we're going to have President Trump finally doing his thing at NATO, the NATO summit, which is going on in Brussels. And the big meeting is taking place at the Cinquantenaire, which is the big urban sprawling park in Brussels. There's going to be a ceremony and the meeting of all the allied heads of state there. So we'll be going over to that in a little bit. Jackie, what you working on? Anything cool?
Nothing really. I'm excited for the All-Star game though.
Yeah, so we're only 6 days away, less than a week, or not even now, yeah, 6. Next Tuesday, they all descend upon D.C., so all the top stars from the AL and the NL of the MLB come together for the game, and there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a color run, the Nike color run on Sunday, which is the big run where you wear white and they throw paint at you or whatever. Some other sporty stuff this weekend. Big like paraphernalia, memorabilia at the convention center, some other baseball stuff.
I was looking at them like setting up and everything. I feel like that would be really interesting to be a part of.
I know.
To kind
Maybe
of see
check
it
it
all
out
come together.
this weekend.
Ooh, yeah. Very exciting.
So maybe we'll get to do some of that, but we'll be reporting on that all through the week and all through the weekend. Lots of stuff to do. People are bringing their kids around the park itself. There are some cool, lively events and fun and games and stuff for children. So it'll be fun down there in Yards Park area of DC. So right down there on the water. Some other interesting stories, though, from some of our stations. I want to show you some of these before we go over to internationally for President Trump at the summit. So let's go to some of the top stories of the day.
To sell alcohol to the customer because it was past the legal cutoff time. Even though the punch turned out to be temporarily painful, it was also an amazing stroke of luck.
First, look at this video. It was captured Sunday morning by surveillance cameras. In it, you can see the unknown man bring alcohol from the cooler. That's when David Miller, the clerk, went over to explain you can't buy it after 3. David takes the beer back to the cooler. He says the guy started cursing him out. Then they start arguing as David tries to kick him out of the store. That's when the unknown man punched the clerk, someone who is twice his age.
If he's smart, he'll turn himself in, and all I want is to see him turn a new leaf and have a better life. My God turns evil to good. Because of this, I got a CAT scan of my head to make sure he hadn't done any real damage. And because of that, they found a small benign brain tumor that will get treated in an early stage now. This could also turn out to be a very good thing for him. He could get rehab because of this. He could change his life today because of this mistake.
If you think you recognize the man who threw the punch, David says to give police a call because it just might change his life for the better. In Tampa, Evan Axelbank, Fox 13 News.
It was a war of words today on Capitol Hill as Brett Kavanaugh stepped down for the first time as President Trump's next choice for the High Court.
Judge Kavanaugh is a man of impeccable credentials and character.
The bottom line here is that one individual on this court makes a difference.
The battle over the next Supreme Court nominee is already underway in Washington. President Trump's pick for the bench, Brett Kavanaugh, was personally escorted to Capitol Hill today by Vice President Mike Pence. Pence used the day to rally support for Kavanaugh in a closely divided Senate.
Judge Brett Kavanaugh is quite simply the most qualified and the most deserving nominee to the Supreme Court.
But Democrats are already putting up a fight, saying Kavanaugh poses a threat to women's rights, LGBT rights, and voting rights.
Anyone who gets the Good Housekeeping seal of approval from Leonard Leo and the Federalist Society and from the Heritage Foundation is not moderate, is not mainstream.
Many are promising they will vote no on Kavanaugh's nomination, while the White House is trying to paint the showdown on Capitol Hill as an unfair game of politics.
If it's based on pure politics, then some will do what they usually do, hold up their stop sign, scream, resist, obstruct, stop, fight to the death to stop him.
Now the focus is on red state Democrats and moderate Republicans who could be crucial in the confirmation of Judge Kavanaugh. Meanwhile, Republican leadership says they'll get him confirmed by September or October. In Washington, Ray Bogan, Fox News.
He's certainly the youngest recruit to report for duty at Fire Station 10, but Colton Cantor is known for being tough and filled with perseverance. And with the Make-A-Wish Foundation organizing a dream day as a firefighter, this 3-year-old answered the call.
Of course, every 3-year-old boy loves emergency vehicles, and so fire trucks, police cars, ambulances, street sweepers, all of those big trucks.
Rolling Code 3 with lights and sirens, Colton took a break from fighting leukemia to fight this fire alongside his fire team. And with steel in his eyes, Colton, along with another probationary firefighter, snuffed out the blaze to celebratory applause.
I think he took the job serious. He was very intent on putting that fire out. We couldn't get him off the nozzle. It was awesome.
Then after a little pancake snack and a gift of a new personalized fire truck to take home, Colton was whisked away in a stretch limousine to his next activity.
We're just thankful that God has given us the strength to get through this, and blessings that come through Make-A-Wish grants and the people that have supported us and prayed for us. So we're just taking it all in and enjoying it.
Colton's family says he's been battling leukemia for the last year, and while the most difficult time is over, they say he's not completely out of the woods, but they're very excited about his bright future ahead. From Rolando, Jamie Chambers, Fox 5 News.
When the signal is emitted from a fob, we hope the door is opened and the engine is fired up by us. But these days, that's not a sure thing. Hackers have now found a way to read the electronic signature fobs emit, and they are stealing cars. How easy is it for the hacker to pick it up?
It's actually incredibly easy. You know, I use a RFID blocker for my credit cards, but you know, the average person is not going to walk around with a tinfoil wrapped car key, right? Mm-hmm. So it's actually fairly easy to take that signal, amplify it, and unlock your vehicle remotely.
Diana just had her key go out the other day, only to watch a locksmith duplicate another fob in front of her with frightening ease. She believes the hack is true.
I'm afraid it's true because the guy came under like 10 minutes or less. He could give me another key.
And Yvonne's heard of this hack, so she's been keeping her fob key hidden in her purse, thinking it protects her. It does not. They said that to actually block it, you have to put it in aluminum foil.
I didn't know that.
In fact, experts say the best you can do is to keep your fob in a coffee tin at night, and during the day, wrap it up in aluminum foil. A low-tech, low-budget solution Eddie, for one, is not ready to embrace. Now that we told you about this, is there anything you would do differently?
Just keep the keys in your pocket, that's it.
But that won't stop the signal. It has to be in aluminum foil.
Well, you cannot keep the keys always.
Cyber experts, including the guys at Hyper, say the days of the fob are numbered. There's actually no fix for this. That over the next couple of years, they'll be phased out in favor right now of something that would go on your smartphone, but it's not like that's not being hacked either. In Herald Square, Arthur Chien, Fox 5 News.
And a couple more stories coming your way later on this afternoon, but I want to flash over to Brussels because we just got word that President Trump and Melania Trump are supposedly coming very shortly. Don't want to miss that arrival. So jumping over now to Brussels for this sort of meet and greet with the allied heads of state and the welcome ceremony for all those heads of state. President Trump and his wife coming up shortly. So let's jump over there.
Very good to see you.
Well, yes, I'm the chief of protocol. I will ask you.
Prime Minister, my dear friends, welcome. So happy to see you. Yeah, to do it with pleasure. We're to organize it.
Mr. President, nice to see you again. Would you like to?
Welcome.
It's Prime Minister.
So 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Hello.
Il fait une action.
Vous souhaite la bienvenue.
Presenting the
Bonsoir. Notre chef de protocole. Madame la chef du protocole.
Vous êtes le protocole sur les
Je l'ai dit.
Entre, voilà mon président préféré.
All right, guys, obviously you can see we're watching this along with you from our newsroom, the arrival of the heads of state here. They're greeting Belgian Prime Minister Charles Michel. You can see him there with the glasses. He's only 42 or 43 years old, 42, I believe, this year. So a young Prime Minister and his partner with him. And we are told President Trump and Melania Trump are coming up shortly. So we are kind of just watching and waiting with you. This is all live coming at you from Belgium, and we're going to get a little view of the welcome ceremony, the official ceremony that he will take part in sort of this grand public park in Brussels. So we'll have eyes on that hopefully soon. They're kind of just tracking all the leaders now coming over. But the president shortly to come. So we'll be watching for that along with you as they kind of head down this blue carpet and greet the Prime Minister. Let us know if you have any questions or thoughts as you follow along with us on the live chat. And we'll be back with you in a little bit. All right, guys, obviously we are still waiting on the president's arrival, President Trump, and it should be coming up shortly. This may be it. We'll keep watching. One of the bigger news points to come out of this, though, in sort of a breaking piece of news, is that President Trump introed his portion of the summit of NATO here, criticizing other countries for their defense spending, saying that they need to increase it rapidly. Again, sort of praising America's own defense spending, the 4% of GDP, but criticizing others for saying they need it to be a little bit higher, not meeting that 2% mark, some of them. So that's one of the things that has come out of this meeting with the allies here in Europe. And it looks like there's the president himself. There we go. So here's his arrival, and you were right, Jackie. You got it. He and Melania there. Oh, that's a lovely beautiful in white, as she always does. Coming into this welcoming ceremony. So let's check in on this and enjoy it with all the fanfare that surrounds it.
Président n'est pas un endroit annoncé.
It's just
Mr. President,
No.
glad to see you again since yesterday. Please, if you would like to. Hello, hello.
Taking a look at that gorgeous building there, guys, in Brussels, as all the heads of state have pretty much arrived now, and they will be joining in, greeting each other, and then being part of this welcome ceremony that we should get in. And so we're going to kind of keep you here, but also simultaneously bring you over to the Senate floor, see what they're debating today on this Wednesday live here in Capitol Hill. So we'll bring you a two-first shot, and then once this sort of gets underway, we'll bring this back with a little sound to check into the NATO summit. So here we go, Senate floor on your bottom left. Listen in.
33% said we should wait. But Democrats want to delay. They want to delay the process. The American people are saying, get on with it. It's early July now. We're going to work through the month of August. Gives us plenty of time to consider this nomination. And when you look at the people serving on the Supreme Court today, you know, we typically spend about 66 days to confirm each of them. That's going to put it around the middle of September. There's no reason we need to take any longer than that. Judge Kavanaugh has been through this process before, been confirmed by the Senate before. He was confirmed to the Circuit Court by the vote of 57 to 36 in this body. 4 Democrats supported his confirmation. He served on the Circuit Court for over 12 years, has written a number of rulings, of I think over 300. His background as a judge gives us powerful evidence of the kind of justice that he will be. He's going to take the law and the Constitution at face value. He's not going to treat them like blank pages on which he can rewrite the law in his own making, to his own wishes. In his speech last year, he made it very clear. He said, the judge's job is to interpret the law, not to make the law or make policy. This view, and every example I have seen from Judge Kavanaugh's record, is squarely in the mainstream of American legal thinking today. Squarely in the mainstream. He's smart, he's fair, I believe he's very well qualified. Regrettably, none of this matters to some of the Democrats. They're going to use the same scare tactics that they use every time a Republican president nominates someone to the Supreme Court. Mr. President, they did it 40 years ago when President Gerald Ford nominated John Paul Stevens to the court. Liberals accused him of, quote, antagonism to women's rights. When President Reagan nominated Justice Kennedy 31 years ago, the justice who's just retired from the court, Democrats said of his nomination, that the nomination, quote, should be unsettling, they said, to those concerned with the health and legal status of women in America. Mr. President, they've been using the same old lines for more than 40 years. It's never true. It's never reality. But apparently for the Democrats, it never gets old. I hope the Democrats in the Senate will give Judge Kavanaugh a chance. I hope that they will take the time to consider his qualifications, and they will actually sit down and talk with him before they rush to condemn him, although quite a few had rushed to condemn him even before the president had decided and he was named to the court. So I also look forward to sitting down with the nominee, to exploring some of his views more fully, but everything that I have seen so far suggests to me, Mr. President, that it's going to be a very good conversation and that Judge Kavanaugh would make an excellent justice of the Supreme Court. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor. Suggests the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Alexander.
led by Canada's Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau.
All right, guys, so what happens is they cut our feed, unfortunately, of that welcome ceremony. That was perhaps the extent of some of it there with President Trump and the First Lady arriving in Brussels. And now they're replaying back this symposium with Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau. So we can check into that a little bit and listen in to him. And then I want to show you a couple other cool feature stories that we have from here and around the country that we've been working on for some top stories of the day. So let's check in to see this interview with Justin Trudeau. It might be kind of cool to see what he had to say prior to some of this. Again, this is playback from this symposium with the Prime Minister of Canada.
Stay of those troops in Latvia for another 4 years until 2023 as part of NATO's mission to deter potential Russian aggression. The success of NATO rests both on shared interests, but also very important.
All right, guys, total bummer because we thought that was coming up. Unfortunately, just don't know what they're going to be feeding in. I do see, though, Bernie Sanders on the Senate floor discussing what is perhaps, as we've been talking about, the Supreme Court justice pick, as so many of them have been debating this morning. So let's listen into the senator on Capitol Hill now live. We'll come back to this ceremony when it gets underway.
Why I am in opposition to Mr. Kavanaugh. I think many Americans have a pretty good sense of what the function of Congress is, what the President of the United States does. But in fact, I think many Americans do not fully appreciate the role that the Supreme Court plays in our lives. In the past decade alone, the Supreme Court has issued some incredibly controversial and, to my mind, disastrous decisions that have had a profound impact on the lives of the American people. And let me just review for a moment why this nomination is so very important by looking at what the Supreme Court, often by a 5-4 vote, a one-vote majority, has done in recent years. Mr. President, if you go out onto the streets of, I think, any community in the United States of America, whether it is a conservative area or a progressive area, what most people will tell you is that we have a corrupt campaign finance system, a system which today, as we speak, allows billionaires to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to buy elections. And most Americans, whether they are Democrats or Republicans or independents, do not think that that is what American democracy is supposed to be about. What most people think is majority should rule. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But everybody gets a vote, not a situation in which billionaires can spend unlimited sums of money to support candidates who represent their interests. But that is, in fact, what goes on right now. And many Americans may think, well, that was a decision made by Congress, made by the president. Not so. That disastrous decision, which is undermining American democracy, came about by a 5-4 vote of the United States Supreme Court in the Citizens United case. That is what a Supreme Court decision can do. It can undermine American democracy and create a situation where the very wealthiest people in this country can buy politicians and influence legislation. Mr. President, several years ago, the Supreme Court upheld the constitutionality of the Affordable Care Act, but the court also ruled that the Medicaid expansion as part of the Affordable Care Act had to be optional for states. I'm on the Health, Education, Labor Committee that helped write that bill, and I can tell you, there was almost no discussion, I don't recall any discussion, about whether or not that legislation would apply, and all elements of that legislation would apply to every state in this country. But the Supreme Court ruled that that was not the case. And they said that the decision of expanding Medicaid was up to the states. And today we have 17 states in our country that still have not expanded Medicaid. And what that means in English, in real terms, is today there are millions and millions of people in 17 states in this country, people who are ill, people who can't afford health care, people who are literally dying because they don't go to the doctor when they should. And that is all because of a decision of the United States Supreme Court. But it is not only the issue of campaign finance or the issue of Medicaid and health care where the Supreme Court has acted in a disastrous way. I think everybody knows that our country has a very, very shameful history in terms of civil rights. And it has been a very long and hard struggle for us to finally say that in America, regardless of the color of your skin, regardless of your economic position, you have the right to vote. Not a radical idea, but it is a struggle that very brave people fought for many, many decades. In 1965, U.S. Congress finally passed the Voting Rights Act, which had the impact of eliminating racial discrimination in voting. And that act, passed by Congress, had been reauthorized multiple times since. In other words, what Congress said is that everybody in this country has the right to vote regardless of the color of your skin. But in 2013, the Supreme Court, again by a 5-4 vote, ruled that parts of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 were outdated, and they struck down a major, major part of that law which guaranteed that all Americans had the right to vote. And literally days after that decision was rendered by the Supreme Court, officials in state after state after state responded by enacting voting restrictions targeted at African Americans, poor people, young people, and other groups of citizens who don't traditionally vote Republican. Literally days after that Supreme Court decision, state officials said, wow, we now have the opportunity to make it harder for our political opponents to vote, and they moved very, very quickly with restrictive voting rights laws. And that situation was created by, once again, a 5-4 vote by a conservative Supreme Court. And just this year, we saw the Supreme Court rule against unions in a really outrageous decision in the Janus case, designed to weaken the ability of workers, public employees, to negotiate fair contracts. Just this year, we saw the Supreme Court uphold President Trump's Muslim ban and other important pieces of legislation. This is already a Supreme Court that, given the option, will rule, as they have time and time again, often by a 5-4 vote, in favor of corporations and the wealthy against working people, who will continue to undermine civil rights, voting rights, and access to health care, who are edging closer and closer to ruling that a person's religious beliefs should exempt them from following civil rights laws. So having said that, let me just say very briefly why I oppose the nomination of Judge Kavanaugh. As it happens, I do not usually believe anything that President Trump says because I think, sadly, he is a pathological liar. But I do think this is a moment where we should believe one thing that he said during the campaign. I think in this instance, he was actually telling the truth. And during the campaign, he was asked if he wanted to see the court overturn Roe versus Wade, the landmark decision that protects a woman's right in this country to control her own body. And he responded to that question, and I quote, "Well, if we put another 2 or perhaps 3 justices on, that's really what's going to be. That will happen. And that'll happen automatically, in my opinion, because I am putting pro-life justices on the court." End of quote. That's Donald Trump during the campaign. On a separate occasion, as many may recall, Trump suggested that women who have abortions should be punished. So I have very little doubt that while he may evade the question of whether or not he wants to overturn Roe v. Wade, I have zero doubt that he would not have been appointed by Donald Trump unless that is exactly what he will do. Mr. President, as I think we all know, President Trump put
And his upcoming meeting with Vladimir Putin, President of the Russian Federation. Let me start with Mr. Benchikowski. I come to the floor today to...
All right, guys. Well, that was a pretty interesting welcome ceremony. We've been watching this along with you. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, right? Pretty cool.
It was awesome.
The girl, the dancing, the balloons, the fanfare. Pretty awesome to see some of the heads of state that you don't always see, and you never see them come all together like you do at NATO. So, interestingly, Brussels is the headquarters of this political alliance. It was originally in London, moved to Paris, and then ultimately to Brussels in 1967. So that's why we see it there today. And if you saw a little glimpse of that, President Trump and Melania and the other heads of state with their spouses posing for that family photo, as they call it, with the other heads of state. So pretty interesting just to see that sort of wide pan shot of that with the beautiful building in the background. So more from NATO this week as we have it, guys. We'll try to bring you the latest and any of the live pieces. I believe that was sort of the extent of the welcome ceremony. So we're going to leave you with a couple of just cute little feature stories, some of them dog stories, a little bit of animal love for you guys on this Wednesday, July 11th. And then we'll say a quick goodbye and pass you off, and we'll catch you again tomorrow. So take a look at some of these rescue stories, really cute stories from our sister stations.
Not sure what my name is or what I was doing when firefighter Brian Shuda found me in Lakeside Monday night.
I was out on my evening run at my house in Lakeside. I saw her out there by herself. She was pretty out of place and really scared. When I finally was able to catch up to her, I realized she was probably not going to make it through the night out there. It's pretty rural.
And if Brian had not taken me to his house, the coyotes might have gotten me.
I was maybe an hour after I brought her home. I heard the coyotes howling like we do almost every night. There's lots of them out there. I figured it was only a matter of time. I took her home and decided to bring her here because we're right across the street from Helen Woodward, and thought maybe that they could find a microchip.
But since I don't have a chip, they couldn't help us.
I'm hoping somebody will recognize her. She's pretty well cared for. Doesn't seem to be malnourished or anything. My wife gave her a bath last night because she was kind of dirty, but other than that, I think that she probably has a happy home somewhere.
For the time being, she will stay here with Shuda at the fire station. He says a few people have already offered to take her home in case her owners aren't located. From Rancho Santa Fe, Salvador Rivera, Fox 5 News.
If you have a pet or know someone who does, you may be aware that they, like us, get anxiety. Now, it could be from a noise that fireworks make or even a vacuum cleaner. In fact, my dog hated that noise. We all have ways to calm them down. But treats with cannabis oil?
I would never, ever, 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 ever expose him to anything that he is not meant for dogs.
Yeah, I would do it. I don't see anything wrong with it.
I wouldn't feel comfortable. I would not do it at all.
No.
I don't think it's meant for puppies. I don't think it's meant for dogs.
We do use a lot of it.
Dr. Jody Smith is a veterinarian at Astoria Veterinary Group and explains the treats and the oil are safe for pets.
There is no THC. That's the part that makes people high. So there's none of that. Pets don't get high.
I probably wouldn't do it.
Why?
I don't know. I just, want to keep it more natural. They have to synthesize the oils.
I'm not sure. I mean, I have to see how it affects other dogs.
There's definitely been research that's been done that shows that it can be helpful with anti-inflammatory, so degenerative joint disease, arthritis, as well as anti-anxiety.
I'm actually a dog walker, and one of my clients use those for their dog for anxiety, but I don't think that it works.
What would you do if you were given a marijuana treat? It's not for every dog, I guess. In Central Park, Reagan Medji, Fox 5 News.
Fans blow cool air on the livestock at the Santa Barbara County Fair, providing much-needed relief for these cattle.
It's been pretty hot. It was 110 this weekend. It's been way up there.
The heat is a big concern, especially for animals in a new and unfamiliar environment.
They can often get stressed out. They'll stop eating, and
and it can cause a lot of health problems for them.
For some livestock, like turkeys, hot temperatures can spell big trouble.
They're so fluffy, they have so many feathers, and they're bred to be fat. So because of that, the heat just kind of soaks into them and they get overheated and die.
Prevention is vital and must be kept up throughout the day.
Put fans on them, spray them with cool water, keep their heads wet, keep them shaved, because their heads is where they regulate the temperature of their body.
Especially important for their health and to get them feeling normal as they get ready to show.
Keep them cool and comfortable, or else they'll get anxious and they'll not be themselves. They won't drink and they'll not feel well.
All the students I spoke with said they are paying very close attention to the weather forecast this week and are excited that cooler temperatures are on the way.
It's definitely a relief to know that throughout the week it's going to start cooling down, especially since the shows are going to start. It's going to become a more stressful time for us and the animals.
All right, some cool little animal stories there for your Wednesday. I like that. Some dog ones. The cannabis one, though, that was crazy.
Yeah, strange.
Would you give one to your dog?
I mean, yeah. If they had bad anxiety, I know a lot of my friends have animals that do have really bad anxiety. Especially with loud noises like thunderstorms. Oh my God. They'll hide under beds for hours and they get so scared. I mean, if it helps them, sure.
Interesting. I know, it's so funny. She was trying to interview that dog in Central Park. That was our New York sister station in New York, Fox 5 New York. Looks like we are getting some final pictures in from NATO. Mike Pompeo, the newly elected Secretary of State, is there, and the camera's kind of following. The pool camera is basically following to kind of get everything they can from the feed there. So what we're going to do is bring that back up, and we'll roll out the show for today kind of with the final pictures from NATO, as long as we have it, so you guys can see what's going on there live. But from us here in the studio at DC, I'm Molly Nevola with intern Jackie, hanging out with you and trying to bring you the latest live news from here in DC and around the country and around the world. And of course, this is World News, and it's our American politicians over there doing their thing. So we want to bring that to you, and we'll have more for you from Brussels this week, so you can be sure of that as we track that. And then the latest with the All-Star game coming here in DC, a lot of big stories. Going to be a very heavy mid-July month here in Washington. So thank you guys for joining us. Hang out with us as long as you want to. We're just going to show you the latest from NATO. Looks like Mike Pompeo walking into whatever they're doing now, some welcome ceremony or dinner or luncheon. I guess it is close to dinner time over there now, so sun is about to set. So going over there now. All right, we'll catch you guys again tomorrow, 11:30 Eastern, here on our YouTube channel. Take care.
Bye.
We were in a beautiful town. Yes, it is. There's a lot of work in this. Probably a lot of work. Well, this is a better one. All right. Both machines are.
On the docket listed out front, it is case number 2017-423833. In the case of Wilton E. Lawrence as trustee of the revocable trust agreement of the Wilton Ernest Lawrence dated June 18, 2002 as amended. Jennifer Weaver as co-personal representative of the estate of Sylvia Abercrombie Lawrence and Joyce McCowan, is that it? McKeown as personal representatives of the estate of Sylvia Abercrombie Lawrence versus Todd C. Colehep, Reed T. Sherrard, where is he? There he is. Solely in his official capacity as court-appointed receiver of the assets of Todd C. Colehep and not in his individual capacity, Seegers Fence Company, Inc., and Christine J. King. Mr. Carter, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, if you will.
I'm Wayman Carter. I represent the plaintiffs in this action. One correction, we did have a substitution order that made clear that Jennifer Lawrence and Joyce, I'm going to pronounce her name as well, thank you, are, since filing the action, are substituted in their capacities as trustees of the residual.
All right.
It's the same individuals, and they're all in the courtroom with me this morning. We had, well, first of all, this is a mortgage foreclosure action involving property in Spartanburg County, and all of the, Mr. Colehep, who's the owner of the property, has not filed an answer. We filed an affidavit of default, and I'm going to serve as Mr. Colehep. Each of the other defendants have filed answers in the case, and Sherry is here, and we've received the answers of the other two defendants without any objection. We had previously served out copies of the exhibits that we plan to proceed on today to make the record. Those have been sent to all parties, including Mr. Colehep, by mail. And absent an objection by someone, I'm going to move those exhibits, which have been filed with the court, into evidence. I'll identify those. They are affidavit regarding administrative order was pre-filed as plaintiff's exhibit 1, copy of the notice, plaintiff's exhibit 2, the mortgage is plaintiff's exhibit number 3. It was the 2017 assignment of the original interest of Mr. Lawrence, and that was plaintiff's exhibit number 4. 2 assignments of mortgage in 2018 are group exhibit number 5. Those are the as to the half interest originally held by Mrs. Lawrence. There was an affidavit of debt signed by Jennifer Weaver regarding setting forth the calculation of the amount due, which is plaintiff's exhibit number 6. And my affidavit of attorney's fees is in the record as plaintiff's exhibit number 7. And I would move that the court receive those exhibits which have been pre-filed in evidence.
All right. Any objection?
Not the receiver.
All right. Then they will be received. Sorry, Ken. All right. All right. Thank you.
All of those in the record, I know we have limited time, so moving them out along, I just want to highlight a couple of issues, and that is, and I've also submitted a proposed order to the court as well that has the findings as to proof of service, et cetera, and the filing of notices and the description of the property, the filing of mortgage and recording, and the details as to the amount due. But in total amount debt of the debt with principal, late charges, property taxes, advance, and attorney's fees is $136,017.34. We're asking for a judgment for foreclosure and sale of the premises. In our complaint, we requested a deficiency judgment against Mr. Colehap. We'll give you notice that we're waiving that deficiency demand so that when the property is sold, that there will be a single sale instead of the sale remaining open. One of the issues raised by Mr. Sherrod, the receiver, had to do with whether the order appointing him was any impediment to the foreclosure case going forward. Those issues were put before the circuit court on my motion to refer the case, and the case was referred to Your Honor. So my belief is that order referring this matter to the master equity is the law of the case on any of those issues. The other issue raised by the receiver in his answer was the applicability of the Preservation of Evidence Act, South Carolina Code Section 1728-300 at C. My position on that, and we talked about this, and I think it's been raised in court in the status conference, is that the Act refers to a custodian of evidence being an agency or political subdivision of the state. He is not that, and there's no agency of the state that has expressed any reservation about the sale going forward. Custodian of evidence also extends to the definition includes a person ordered by a court to take custody of evidence during a criminal investigation or proceeding, end quote. Mr. Sherrod was appointed by the Court of Common Pleas in connection with a civil action, so I don't believe that order appointed him, even though he was directed in the receivership order to take possession of the assets of Mr. Colehap. I don't think that equates into making him a custodian of evidence, because it doesn't identify those assets as evidence, and more importantly, because that was in a civil, not in a criminal proceeding. So as a result, and furthermore, we notified the county attorney, and the county attorney has communicated that it's her position that the county does not take the position that they are in possession of the property, and there's been no expression on the part of the county that the action should not go forward. So my proposed order asks that the foreclosure sale proceed on, and it has the usual provisions in there about the sale of the property. It does not set a sale date. It merely says that the sale will take place at a suitable foreclosure sale date, future sale date, where the court can simply set a sale date by filing a notice of sale, and then the advertisement of the sale will go forward. So I'll sit down and let Mr. Sherrod speak. I think he's going to want to hear all these issues.
Mr. Sherrod.
Thank you, Judge. Reed Sherrod, as Mr. Carter stated, I was appointed by the order of appointment of receiver entered on January 25th, 2017. That order goes through a variety of things I'm supposed to do regarding various assets of Mr. Colehap. As Mr. Carter mentioned, I filed an answer in this matter on December the 4th, 2017, in which I essentially raised these issues for the court's adjudication, whether or not the receivership order impacts this matter or not, and whether or not the Preservation of Evidence Act impacts this matter or not. I don't have a position, and I'm arguing for that one way or the other. That's the court's determination and Your Honor's capacity to adjudicate this matter. If the court finds the Preservation of Evidence Act doesn't apply, I have no problem with that. If the court finds it does apply, I have no problem with that. I want to bring the court's attention so there's no confusion as to what my position is and what the issues are to be determined today. The only thing I would want to be a little more clear about is regarding the sale of the property, if in fact it is an order of foreclosure is entered today. Mr. Carter mentioned there is a sale date that will not be set today, but then the court would set up a sale date in the future. You know, the process and notice by which that would happen, I would like further clarification on if possible.
All right. Mr. Carter, does your order the issue of the non-applicability of the act?
It does, Your Honor, on page 7 of the proposed bill, paragraph 36.
All right. And that would be, Mr. Sheriff, that would be my position as far as the applicability.
Understood.
All right. Now the question is as to the total debt.
Yes, sir.
Any question on that?
No, sir.
Mr. Colehap?
No, sir.
Any question on the debt?
No, sir.
All right.
I mean, again, my proposal is that the sale be settled, beginning sale date hereafter. But if we don't have any other issues, we can determine the brief or whatever, the court may want for a sale date. I'm really interested.
Trying to remember the sale date deadline for, I know Friday's a deadline for the August.
Why don't we?
Let's just set it for September. The September sale date. And if you will submit a notice of sale for the September date, setting out that it is a waiver and that is a final sale.
That would probably be the Monday after Labor Day, correct?
I think
Tuesday after Labor Day.
Let's see. I think it is September 4th. But if you will e-file that. And I note that your e-filed document does waive the deficiency, so that is the final sale on September 4th. Any other matters relating to Mr. Sheriff? Any matters over here? All right. Then I will sign the order as submitted and the notice of sale when it is submitted. All right?
All right.